We are actually Enron. Enron Corporation is actually back. Let's legitimately try to fix the energy grid. So at the time, it's like, oh shit, they did Trump and Melania. And within 10 minutes, I mean, it was like cooked. Scam, rug pull. It was through Meteora that Kelsier got involved. Fraud and scandal and rug pulling. I mean, it reminded me of like what ultimately Enron is, which is this story of corruption.
GM, and welcome back to SolanaFloor. We've just lived through one of the wildest weeks of this cycle in terms of price action. We survived that massive correction heading into last week that people attributed, at least in some part, to those high-profile meme coin and token launches that went really, really, really wrong. And Enron is, of course, one of those launches. So today I'm joined by Enron's CEO himself, Connor, who's very kindly agreed to address some of those accusations of insider trading, accusations of sniping, and even collusion with Hayden Davis and the Kelsier Ventures team. Now, I have to admit that going into the conversation, I had no idea what to think about the Enron launch, the team behind it, and to what extent it was sniped or sabotaged by people like Hayden. And I was certainly surprised to see how open Connor is to address these concerns. So I hope you learn as much from this conversation as I did. And if you do, please consider subscribing. If you like the work we do, it's just one click and it really helps the channel out. Connor, GM, thank you for being here. And just to clear up any confusion there and very quickly get us up to date on what Enron is and how you get involved, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And finding myself sitting in this chair as the CEO of Enron is obviously not something that I would have ever predicted to have on my bingo card. And when I tell people about it, they're just kind of look at me with this like blank stare, like, all right, we should ship this guy off to, a place and, hopefully he gets help. But I think the reality is that we are actually Enron. Enron Corporation is actually back. We have the infrastructure, we have all the trademarks, all the copyrights, and everything that, requires for us to actually do this completely for real. And, the idea that we are just a joke, just a satire, just a parody, I think is way too limiting on what the ultimate vision is for this company. The brand of Enron is extremely strong. I mean, the logo itself is designed by Paul Rand, who's probably one of the most iconic commercial designer artists in the world. He designed the IBM logo, Steve Jobs' Next Computer Company logo, the ABC logo, all these iconic logos. And his last logo was the Enron logo, and he called it his best work. And so the myth of Enron, I think, is something that we've all sort of, grown up with, especially like if, you go to business school, you learn about it. And in general, I think that this thing has become a symbol of corruption, fraud, scandal. They call it the crooked E. I mean, it is at a 45-degree angle. But I think that, a few years ago, whenever we acquired the trademark and the copyrights, there was this idea that, hey, let's actually bring this company back totally seriously. And let's rebuild it from the ground up. Like, let's not just do it as sort of a stunt or a funny prank, but let's legitimately try to fix the energy grid. So I have like sort of a rough background in the energy industry. I have a lot of friends and connections in this space and people that are on sort of the cutting edge of how to fix what is essentially a very broken grid right now. And so Enron, being an energy company in the past, made sense for us to kind of use this brand as leverage to ultimately achieve revolutionary, sweeping changes in what I would call the most important part of our economic infrastructure, our energy grid. We can't have these AI advancements without it. We can't have electric cars without it. Even crypto mining relies on cheap energy. And so for me to be sitting here as the CEO of this energy company, Enron, the resurrection story, and also use it as an opportunity to call out some of the hypocrisy that exists in corporate America. If Enron's not allowed to come back, then why is a company like Boeing allowed to exist when they've, on paper and on record pled guilty to not building quality airplanes and the doors fall off and, it puts a lot of people in danger and a lot of people in harm, and I think that ultimately is the full package of what we're trying to do. It's not just, we're not just trying to solve the energy crisis. We're not just trying to, satirize other corporations. It's a lot of things in one. I think that, the sum of everything is ultimately what's going to help drive this company past things like this crypto debacle, which, I would love to get into more.
Absolutely. And we definitely have time to dive into the whole crypto saga. And as I said, talk about Hayden and Kelsier Ventures and everything that went wrong, so to speak. But you were for a few months, I saw, teasing a token launch, which makes sense given everything you've just explained. I'm curious if you can sort of explain to me What series of events led us to the Enron launch? Yeah, so what events led us to that point and how did the launch go?
Yeah, so we had always thought that, we've got our, I would call it one of the best marketing teams in the world, and we also have the Enron brand. So the IP behind us allows us to, use all of that as a way to prop up and market and advertise what are ultimately extremely valuable businesses. And so, we have multiple businesses right now that we're rolling out that have nothing to do with crypto at all. Very legitimate businesses. Right now, we're rolling out a retail energy provider business in Texas. We're going to go after this $40 billion energy market down there. We have a trucking company that we're using to sort of, ship products totally for real. And those businesses make money for us. But there was always this idea that, could we tokenize this company? Could we take the sentiment and the meme of Enron and use it to drive value to a crypto coin that would then ultimately help kind of create this flywheel effect that would keep Enron relevant as a meme, but would also grow real businesses underneath it. So it wasn't like this, to quote our friend here, a mass extract moment at all. It was a legitimate play in my mind to build something for real. I mean, it's why I use my real name. My real name is Connor Gaydos, and everyone on our team is very public facing. This was never intended from day one when we started talking about a coin, which was, I think, in early January. From day one, it was like, this is not scam coin, rug pull. Like the fun, exciting part about this is that we feel like we're sort of a unique opportunity for people where it's not just a meme, it's something real and has substance behind it and makes actual money. And so that sort of flywheel was what we were excited about. And whenever we started to get into it, we work with a foundation, we licensed our name to them, and they are ultimately the people that ended up doing a deal with Kelsier. But, even the foundation that we're partnered with, very upstanding people, very public facing people that are running it. We felt like, and so I would say a week before launch, the foundation needed someone to do liquidity pools and they were referred to Meteora. And so they got in touch with Meteora, they reach out, they do a deal, and it's like, it's Meteora, I'm pretty sure they did Trump and Melania and all this other stuff. And so at the time, it's like, oh shit, they did Trump and Melania. Well, great. I mean, that's a good sort of, that checks off that box. And then the day of launch, we had never heard the name Hayden Davis or Kelsier. I mean, I had only even really seen the words Meteora come across my email like a few times, very sort of like, just randomly. And so the day of launch, we're meeting up and it's like, okay, great. Let's see what happens. This is a long-term thing. Let's just start the engine and then build this company. And pretty quickly, those snipers came in and it was like the accusations of fraud and scandal and rug pulling. I mean, it reminded me of like what ultimately Enron is, which is this story of corruption, and the meta irony in it was not lost on us. But the reality was we had no idea. Like we legitimately did not know anything about, these inside snipers or whatever. And so, as we're learning about it and as we're sort of investigating and we're trying to figure out, like, we're doing a forensics report, we're trying to figure out, was there someone on the inside who did this? Was there someone at the foundation level that did this? Because if so, like, we need to know about it. And so we ended up not finding anything. It was very inconclusive. Like, everyone was clean. And then we just sort of, I think we're like, all right, well, I guess this is just what happens in crypto. Like you get sniped to hell. And I guess these guys were just super lucky, but it is very suspicious that they were able to get in like that. I mean, within a fraction of a second. Then you fast forward, I think, another week to the LIBRA launch. And I see, CoffeeZilla's video that comes out about it. And, DeFi Tuna releases his interview with Ben Chow, or not an interview, but, his Zoom call. And that's when it started to click. We were like, oh, okay, this actually makes plenty of sense now what happened. And, it's unfortunate, but it's also very, I think, vindicating for the whole team, because a lot of people on our team are like very public facing, forward facing people with serious careers. And it would behoove all of us to take a few $1,000,000 very unethically out of the front end of our project that we're actually trying to build for like the next 5 years. The value for us out of doing that is stupid. Like the long-term value here for everyone, not just in the coin's value, but in the corporation's value that we can drive through kind of the sentiment with the coin and the real businesses and the meme of Enron and it all working together. it was disheartening whenever we saw the news about Hayden and Kelsier. And I actually got on with DeFi Tuna on Monday morning, and we were able to talk about it for like 45 minutes. And it was very therapeutic because, I think any other time in, crypto history, this would happen to us and we would just never hear about it again. We would never know why. But luckily, through, because of people like yourself and DeFi Tuna kind of putting themselves out there, exposing the rigged casino for what it is, now we're able to sit here and get our side of the story out in a way that's actually backed up by facts. So yeah, it's been a cool, but also very humbling and sobering reality for us since we launched the coin.
I can imagine. And based on what you're describing, it all makes, absolute sense now. You guys are all doxed, public figures. You've got this long-term vision. You've actually got the original rights to use the Enron logo. It doesn't seem like you were planning on just rugging a meme coin and walking away, as you said, with a couple $1 million.
Hell
But
no. Hell no.
right. But a lot of
Yeah.
people, understandably, having just been rugged, multiple times, thought, okay, yeah, we've been fucked here. We thought this was a legitimate project, or we didn't, and we were just gambling, speculating, whatever. But it looks like we've been rugged, and it looks like there was insider trading. It looks like there was some sniping going on. And you mentioned sniping there, so I'm going to get back to that in just a second. But I want to ask you now about Hayden and Kelsier Ventures. So you guys were referred to them by a third party, is that correct?
We had I believe at the foundation level, we needed someone to do liquidity pools. And they were referred to Meteora. And it was through Meteora that Kelsier got involved. Because Kelsier has, I think, some type of exclusive deal with Meteora, maybe butchering this, but that's how Kelsier got involved, was through Meteora. And so we ended up doing a deal with Kelsier, or I should say the foundation did, but it was through Meteora that we were kind of introduced to them. And I think, there were people on the foundation level that had heard about Kelsier. I mean, their reputation before all of this, as far as I understand, was pretty good. Same with Meteoras. So it's just really unfortunate that we ended up going with them as opposed to another partner that would have just not, treated our project as ultimately it was their project too, as some type of way to just extract value on the front end at the ultimate expense of not just our coin, but like our whole company. The reputational strike that we've taken since this has happened has been significant, especially on X, where a lot of our deep community exists. So that's how we got in touch with Kelsier and Hayden.
What's next in your specific to your relationship with Hayden and Kelsier then? Are you, pursuing legal action against them, or are you pursuing legal action against the people that you think were sniping the token? Are you maybe going to go after some of these KOLs that are mentioned? What are your next steps in terms of resolving that dispute specific to Kelsier Ventures and Hayden Davis?
Yeah, we are definitely pursuing legal action. It's at the foundation level. So the foundation who actually runs the coin is currently building a case. Kelsier has breached the contract in like 15 different ways, obviously. And so they have done us dirty. And we're definitely going to try to, we need some compensation. We need some type of, this was supposed to be the thing that sort of helped propel our company into the next chapter, and it's done the complete opposite. So we're definitely pursuing that. And I think more is going to come out on our end in the next week or so, the next few weeks. We'll be able to provide more details on exactly what we're doing and exactly how we're going to go after them. But yeah, I mean, I think the DOJ is also doing an investigation in them right now. I mean, what they've done is a really, really shitty thing for a lot of people, not just for us, not just for, Malay or these other, high profile people, but for the average person that just trusted. They trusted, hey, oh, this is cool. I like the vision here. I like the project here. And then bam, it's the money's gone, it's rug pulled. It's a super unfortunate reality because it gives the whole community a bad name.
Absolutely. I mean, more broadly, people talk about erosion of trust in institutions and political figures. And, when you have a series of events like this where Trump launches a meme coin, then his wife launches one, then you got the Central African Republic launching a meme coin, Libra through Argentina, it doesn't look great. It really doesn't look great. And then on top of that, you have the sort of reputational damage that you talked about for the industry. It makes us all look like a bunch of mugs, right? Which is why I think we're trying to get to the bottom of this and really understand what it was that people like Hayden were offering, or what they were promising, or what they were lying about. So maybe you have some information on the foundation level. You mentioned that there was a deal there with them. What kind of promises were they making? Did they turn around and say, you give us this many percent of the tokens and we'll give you money, or what was the deal there?
As far as I understand it, so obviously fees are generated, and there's some cut on the foundation level where they get a percentage of fees. But more than that, it was just helping us with the infrastructure. I mean, I think that doing this has been, it's a learning experience for a lot of us. We legitimately believe in the vision here. We're bringing in the reality that, hey, we're actually doing this stuff. We're legitimately filing for our applications, and it's going to be approved in the next 30 days in Texas. We're rolling freight across the country, delivering like thousands of pallets of shipments, daily. This company is in the early stages of growing. It's the first step of a 1,000-step journey, and immediately you're kneecapped by this sort of strike, with a sledgehammer. And, so I believe that, we really wanted to work with people that knew what they were doing. And so we were kind of trusting them to help us with the liquidity pools, help the foundation get that stuff set up. So it was ultimately like an infrastructural operational contract to kind of just build in, and sort of as the thing grew, they would kind of maintain it, make sure that it's, the garden is being tended there. So that's what the nature of the agreement was, as far as I understand it, which is a kind of just a normal, trivial, this company has a license with this foundation, which then needs, liquidity pools set up. And here's the people to help. And then those people are the ones that kind of just took the rebar out of our foundation.
That makes sense. I want to talk about the KOLs in sort of relation to the promises that they'd made. Which KOLs did they bring to you and say, here's a guy that can help get the message of Enron or the meme coin or whatever it was that they promised in front of eyes of millions of people? Who did they bring to you as the sort of the launch pad, if you will?
Honestly, I don't remember. I think because it was such a short timeline from when we ended up working with them to the day the coin launched, and it was like a week. It was so kind of rushed. And I mean, in general, looking back, hindsight being 2020, we would have liked to have more time, I think, to get the whole strategy built. We just felt like, because this isn't a meme coin, like, let's launch this and then just see who comes and starts supporting us naturally. We didn't feel like we needed to kind of gamify it from the beginning to sort of be this big, massive push. We were pretty confident that let's launch a coin. Let's intentionally try to keep the price from just pumping in the beginning. Let's have it be some slow thing that allows a lot of people to get in on it on the ground floor. So there's a lot of people that are just sort of disciples for it, not just for the coin, but for all of Enron. And so that was sort of our strategy with KOLs. And since launch, we've had plenty of KOLs reach out to us and ask questions. And I think as we've talked about this, actual story, and as the actual story's developed, it has been very cool to see people. And I've met some really cool people on X and Discord that are very, supportive and encouraging through this. And just like, hey, keep your head up. Like, it looks like this was, an inside job from, your partner. But they didn't bring us anybody, as far as I'm aware, that we ended up partnering with on the KOL side.
You mentioned you spoke with Moti from DeFi Tuna there. Part of the revelation, if you will, that came out and really stressed crypto Twitter out was that some of the more popular KOLs in the Solana ecosystem were at a dinner with Hayden and the Kelsier Ventures team, and that this was the day before or the day of the launch of Enron. Were you there at this dinner? Was it about the launch? What was going on? And most importantly, which KOLs were actually there?
I was not there. So this was, I think he's talking about the hookah bar in Barcelona, the day of launch. I think 10 minutes before launch, Hayden and his family were at a hookah bar, and they were, according to Modi, sending the CA around to, quote, everybody and their grandmother as they were smoking hookah. And so I had never heard or met or spoken with Hayden before LIBRA. Before I'd heard about LIBRA, I'd never heard about this guy. So it was the Dave Portnoy blowing up Twitter that Sunday of LIBRA, after the LIBRA disaster, that I first heard the words Hayden Davis. Then I think it was that late night CopyZilla interview that he did, where he kind of, admitted to like 20 financial crimes, where I first heard about him being attached to Enron. And then we started to send it around to our team, and we were like, hey, the same guy because we were sort of like, look what happened. Holy shit, this is a huge rug pull. Like, this is huge. And it looks very similar to what happened to us. And then you start to compare notes, and you're like, wait, this also happened with Melania. And then you start to see people doing on-chain investigations. They're like, these are the same wallets. But then you have Hayden himself kind of doing all of us a favor and just telling everyone what happened on his own for like an hour in long form, format. So that's when I really first heard about Hayden, to be honest. And, it's unfortunate that we have to hear about him at all in this capacity, but there was never a sort of like unified team of people from us on the Meteora or the Kelsier side. It was more so us on this side and then working with our foundation, who's then the foundation is partnering with these people as partners. So it's just sort of like, I need a plumber to come fix my sink. Who do I call? Get a referral. Okay, great, Meteora. And then, the rest is history.
That makes sense. So there's, I think, about 10 days between the Enron launch and the Libra launch, which coincided with Valentine's Day. So in those 10 days between the Enron launch and the Libra launch, you had no communication with Hayden Davis.
No, no. Our attorneys have been in communication with him, but not me personally.
Yeah, he has indeed done us all a favor by coming out and talking about the, what did you, 20 financial crimes that you mentioned. So yeah, it makes our lives a little bit easier, but still stressful from the perspective of trying to fix some of the reputational damage that has been done. And in that light, you did a polygraph test, didn't you? You sat
I
down
did.
and with a professional, you went through a whole lie detector test. I think it's about an hour-long video. If people haven't seen it, they should go and watch that. Where did that idea come from, and what was the result of your lie detector test?
Yeah. So, I mean, we launched on a Tuesday and within 10 minutes, I mean, it was like cooked, scam, rug pull. That was the narrative. And we're sort of just like reeling because we're like, we're obviously suspicious of our own team. We're like, did anybody do this? Like for real? Like we can't say for sure that someone inside of, the crypto infrastructure team didn't get too greedy and send the coin address to a sniper. Like we didn't know that for sure on Tuesday. And then going into Wednesday, it was still this kind of question mark. So we're sort of trying to figure out, okay, well, we know for a fact that at the corporation level, we had nothing to do with this. So the idea to do a polygraph test was really to help to exonerate myself as the leader of this. Because it's like, it's unfortunate. The meta irony here is that we're Enron and that the leaders of Enron ultimately corrupted what was a great company and what was an innovative company. And so we're just sort of sitting there on the couch like, you've got to be kidding me. Like this is such a humbling thing. It's like a very sort of out of body realization to kind of connect the dots with old Enron and current Enron. So we thought, let's do a lie detector test. If anything, it'll just be kind of a thing that we can do to help to sort of be like, look, we don't know what happened. We agree with you that this is fucked up and shitty, but we don't know what happened and we're going to get to the bottom of it. So we ended up finding a retired FBI special agent named Andre Cicero in New Jersey, who we called him up, and he was like, look, this isn't like a polygraph test that you're going to see on like a reality show. Like this is a serious polygraph test. And so we sent him the questions that we wanted answered, which were essentially just, did I, as Connor, or me and the team, the direct C Corp team, know anything about, these very suspicious, what looks like to be inside sniping activity and inside selling? And, we knew the answer was no. So we took this very legit polygraph test and it was extremely stressful just in general, because it's like hot and it's 7 a.m. and this guy is like talking to you and it sounds like an ASMR video and I'm like falling asleep. But ultimately it was, I knew for a fact that, we had nothing to do with it. So I was totally willing to sit there and sweat and ultimately be found, at least personally in the moment, vindicated for having not known about it. But that doesn't excuse the fact that this went on or appeared to have went on within our own company. So it was sort of just the first step in what ultimately needed to become a multi-step investigation. It was, hey, you can trust me at least, right? And I'll help get to the bottom of what happened here. But ultimately, it's just a polygraph test and people are going to believe what they're going to believe. And the evidence didn't look good at the time. So I think that it was a very interesting, cathartic thing to go through.
Certainly. Let's talk about the damage done by the snipers then. Obviously, huge amounts of selling pressure, and people managed to get in very, very early at a very nice price. And as soon as other people start piling in, they end up dumping. How much damage do you think was done by sniping to your launch?
I think most of the damage, most of the sustained damage that crippled the launch was done by those snipers. I believe like 18 to $20 million, somewhere around there, was extracted from the snipers. And, from talking to Modi, I mean, there was 4 of these snipers, I believe, at this hookah bar, or they were in communication with them through, Kelsier. So that, and then there was one in the very beginning that they, in this interview were like, we don't know who that person is. What I'm assuming it's someone that's kind of in the same network. So it was just, I mean, look, and I don't even, I'd never been through a crypto launch before. So this was like a new experience for me. So to have this sort of like bombardment of, you're not just trying to figure out how to fix the narrative that's going out, but you're also trying to figure out what happened in real time. And looking back, it makes perfect sense. You know, while we're meeting up at our office in New York City, there is a team of essentially, there's a cabal of inside snipers meeting up, you know, across the world to max extract, as they said out of their own mouths. So I would say that most of the damage, the reputational damage, the core sort of hit on what we were trying to do and our vision was done by those snipers.
Do you think Hayden and his brother Gideon and the father, Dr. Tom Davis and Kelsier Ventures, are they criminals? Did they scam Enron? Has Enron been scammed?
I mean, the evidence doesn't look good. That's for sure. I mean, you know, obviously, I think the DOJ will ultimately help decide. I'm hesitant, I think, even now, even though the evidence looks terrible, to make a definitive statement just because I want to respect the legal process. But we're definitely going to be pursuing legal action. I know that you know, obviously, like I've said a few times, the DOJ and among many other people too. I mean, you know, Argentina, Melania's team, you know, these are people that believed in their projects. And I think, you know, I can't speak for them on a, you know, more personal level, but I believe us and I know the team that we've assembled and everyone here has a long-term vision, period. I mean, years. And so, yeah, I mean, the evidence doesn't look good. It makes sense, right? If we hear about, you know, what people are saying and things that are leaking, but it's ultimately, I think, going to be up to the justice system to kind of untangle exactly who was responsible, who was doing what, how many people inside of the Kelsier system were aware this was happening, or Meteora. But you know, I'm very, very interested in getting to the bottom of it.
Just to sort of double, triple check, you never met in person with the Kelsier Ventures team, right?
No, never. I never heard about them until after the Libra launch.
Yeah, see, I think a lot of the confusion about Enron and the Enron launch and this sniping activity that we've just discussed seems to be coming from this notion that you were in the room with them before the launch, with these KOLs, with these snipers, with Kelsier Ventures, and that seems to be the sort of cause, the root cause of all this confusion about Enron. Why people think Enron was actually a meme coin launch that got sniped that went wrong. But yeah, we're finding out that that's not the case. Do you have anything to say to the people who, yeah, are maybe pushing this narrative that you were in cahoots with the cabal themselves, with the Kelsier Ventures team themselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, just verifiably, we're shooting a documentary about our project, and we have time-stamped documentary footage of myself in New York City the morning of launch. So it is just physically impossible that I could have been with them during launch on one hand. And then on the second hand, there's absolutely no communication that's ever been made between myself and Kelsier at all. Period. So, I mean, I think that, take my word for it or don't, but you know, we have ways of actually proving this with hard data and hard evidence that, you know, I had nothing to do with Kelsier, didn't know anything about them until post Libra. And it's just unfortunate, you know, that I'm even in this position to have to defend, you know, my character in this way, which I'm totally here to do. And I'm glad to do it because I ultimately know that, you know, I'm clean and completely exonerated from any blame here. But I am very interested in getting to the bottom of it because we still have people holding our coin. I still believe in the long-term vision of Enron. The people in this country need our help. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, it's ultimately going to be a long road to investigate this. It's going to be something that is, unfortunately, just with the nature of stuff like this, it's not going to be a quick answer in terms of exactly what was Kelsier doing, exactly how involved was like Meteora in this. But right now, you know, we can definitively say that on the Enron side, we are completely blameless, spotless. We partnered with a bad partner is ultimately what I would say you can chalk this up to.
Just before I get to the final question here, and I want to find out sort of what your immediate next steps are going to be. Do you feel on a personal level that Hayden and his brother and his father are criminals? Do you feel like this was a criminal enterprise and that they really wanted to quote unquote max extract?
I think that if we just listen to what they said, if we just listen to Hayden's own words, I mean, and connect the dots, I think that, you know, he's answered that question for us.
What's next for Enron? Not in like a 5, 10 year, corporate sense, but what are you going to be doing tomorrow and the day after and the next few weeks to fix this?
So, outside of our investigation, the foundation's investigation that they're going to be doing, we're just slowly building Enron as a real company, so the coin exists now, it's in the world. We're going to be fixing and sort of, because right now, Kelsier, their agreement is still valid with us, right? I mean, they've, obviously breached our agreement in like 15 different ways. So we're trying to figure out how to untangle and unravel them from this mess, while at the same time, ultimately going into the Texas energy market and trying to set up what I would say is the first step of 1,000 steps to fixing the grid, starting in Texas and then expanding into other states so that we can actually have a future where we're not worried about our, grid collapsing during an ice storm and 200 people die like what happened in Texas in 2021. So that's what I'm ultimately focused on is I'm going to let, the court system do its work and then just, be as transparent and forthright as I can be to our fans and to the audience and to the people that have trusted us with the coin specifically. So we're here to grow the company and, the coin is one part of it. But ultimately, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on a macro level with Enron. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us, explain things that happened to you, happened to Enron, and of course, bring some clarity to the Hayden Kelsier Ventures and insider trading sniping discussion as well. Hopefully we get to catch up soon and hopefully it's under nicer, more pleasant conditions. But thank you very much for joining us.